Hello, everyone, and welcome back to NCOIL One-on-One. With us here today is New York Assemblyman Jarett Gandolfo, Chair of the NCOIL Financial Services and Multi-Lines Issues Committee. Assemblyman Gandolfo, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me on to talk about NCOIL today. It's been a great experience so far, so I'm looking forward to sharing what I've seen there and hopefully encouraging some more legislators to get involved.
Great to hear. So let's hop right in. Can you kind of tell us how you first got involved in public service?
Yeah, sure. It was almost by accident. I always kind of paid attention to politics, but when I was in college, I went to SUNY Albany, which is located right near the state's capital. And when I was in my senior year, approaching graduation, I needed an internship, and the state assembly ran, and still runs, this massive intern program, and it was for 15 college credits too, which was amazing. So I did that. It basically was a full-time job instead of just taking the run-of-the-mill college courses. And I just loved it. I was placed in the office of my predecessor, then Assemblyman Andrew Garbarino. He's in Congress now. And I did 6 months there. And once we finished up and I graduated, I was hired to work down in the district. And just the overall experience was great. You got to work on and learn about issues and just make a positive impact in the district. And when you start seeing the issues you work on come to fruition and make a real improvement in the community, it's almost like addicting. You just fall in love with it. So from there, I stuck around. When he ran for Congress, I got nominated to replace him in the assembly, and that's where I've been ever since.
That's great. Seems like a natural transition. How was that transition from legislative staffer to becoming an elected member like for you?
It was a little more tricky than I was expecting. I guess I was a little, let's say, arrogant, like, oh, I'm just going to walk right into this and figure it out really quick. But it was a learning curve, especially because I got elected in 2020. So come 2021, we were had all these COVID restrictions in the state capitol. So it was kind of weird and not what I was used to seeing. And you realize quickly once it's your name on the door, it's just a totally different animal, but it was good. I had, my former boss as a mentor every step of the way if I had any questions, and a lot of great staff and more senior members in my conference in the assembly who were always quick to lend a hand, show you the ropes, and give advice. So luckily, we had that during COVID. Otherwise, it was easy to be overwhelmed when you really can't see people face to face.
Yeah, I'm sure that was definitely quite the curveball to throw in right when you
Right.
got elected. So
Right.
now that you've been in for a couple terms, what issues have you been most involved with
You
in
know,
the legislature?
Yes, I've been focusing a lot on issues that are very hyper local to my district. My district is on the South Shore of Long Island in Suffolk County. We're a bayfront district, and one of the massive needs that we have is sewer infrastructure down here. About half of my district has no sewer infrastructure, and it causes a lot of nitrogen runoff into the Great South Bay, and it really impacts the water quality negatively. So that's been a really important issue. We also have a lot of issues with coastal resiliency and flooding, especially in the wake of Superstorm Sandy. That was kind of a wake-up call down here. So that actually ties into insurance and NCOIL a lot. I know there was a model act that my predecessor worked on dealing with the flood insurance. So another thing that I've been really cognizant of is the need for coastal resiliency projects all throughout the South Shore of my district. So I've tried to work to support a lot of projects down here, like living shorelines, road raising, some home buyout programs in areas that are really flood prone. So that's something I need to continue working on, and it's great being involved with NCOIL to be able to get feedback from legislators in other states and see how they're handling some of these issues and deal with the industry professionals who could, give us some guidance on the insurance side.
Yeah, so it sounds like you got a full plate in New York, but you're of course now very involved in NCOIL. How did you first hear about the organization and how did you get involved?
Well, my predecessor, as soon as I took office, he was very involved, as you know, and he said, "You better get to the NCOIL meetings. They're just really useful. They're great. You learn so much. You have a say in how insurance policy is being crafted around the country and in your own state. And what's great about NCOIL is you can come from any state, whether you're in the majority or the minority, and everyone's vote is equal at NCOIL when we're drafting the model acts and the model resolutions. So that was his advice, is make sure you get involved with NCOIL, and I'm glad I did, because you really do get immersed in some of these niche issues that otherwise you might never really tackle. Back home, I'm on the health and insurance committees now, and being able to bring back to New York what I've learned at NCOIL and some of those discussions I've had with other areas of the country that might be facing a similar issue, and you have that perspective on how they might have handled it and whether or not it worked.
That's great. So, a lot of issues on the horizon. Are there any issues you'd like to see NCOIL take on in 2025 or the years ahead?
We kind of started with this issue last year, but the food is medicine. Right now, especially at the national level, food products have a lot of attention on them, and whether or not they cause adverse health, some of the additives or ingredients in our food cause adverse health impacts over the long term. So that's something that I think will be interesting to learn more about, and I'm hoping we could dive into it deeper, especially if there's something we can do to help improve health outcomes over the long term, which of course will positively impact the insurance market. So I'm hoping we can get into that a little more.
Yeah, that definitely sparked a productive dialogue. So I'm sure that'll be something that we'll be continuing discussing in the years ahead. So you attended your first NCOIL meeting in your first term in the assembly. Do you have any advice for legislators that might be new to their legislature or new specifically to their insurance committee about getting involved in the organization?
I would say just jump into it and do it. It could look a little overwhelming or intimidating. You don't really know what's really going on there. You get the letter saying, "Hey, come out to this conference." I'm so glad I did it, because you really do, like I said before, you have the opportunity to interact with legislators, staffers, commissioners, industry professionals from all over the country, and you could just learn and observe what they've done and whether or not it could work in your home state. And just being able to build the relationships across party lines, it's really valuable to kind of put all the BS aside and just be able to talk as legislators without cameras on you and people trying to jump down your throat. So my advice would be just do it. Like anything, you'll learn as you go. It can be a little overwhelming, especially if you don't come from an insurance background or a financial services background. But everyone from the staff to the other legislators, they're so helpful. So you would be happy that you did.
Right. So New York has maybe as strong a history at NCOIL as any, with a number of former presidents. As you know, Assemblywoman Pam Hunter is serving as president now. Do you think there's any New York specific reason for that? Is it just something that's in the water?
I mean, we're the financial capital of the world, so maybe that's what's in the water here. But overall, and I can't speak to other states. Uh, all the legislators I know, no matter what party they are in, they're very engaged in some more intricate policy issues. So I think that's what we get into at NCOIL, where we go deep into policies and how they're having their impacts on the insurance markets and in the financial services industry. So I think that really is, just looking at it from my perspective as a legislator in my third term in the state assembly. We really are in New York very engaged year round. We're not technically a full-time legislature, but the job pretty much is full-time. Some legislatures meet a lot less than ours, some meet maybe a little more, but for 6 months, we're really immersed in public policy when we're in session.
So in your view, do you see insurance kind of having as much of a partisan bend in New York as we see among other issues and other legislative bodies around the country?
Generally, no, because it's insurance isn't really typically a hot button issue in most state legislatures. It's not like that's people are banging on your door and stopping by your office to talk, the intricacies of the insurance market. And it does happen. I do have constituents once in a while who come in and bring up an issue they're having with insurance, and they have some good ideas coming from the industry. But overall, the temperature is much cooler on it. Most people really are just looking for a solution to benefit the people of their state or their district, especially now in height of the inflation we've seen the last couple of years. It seems like no matter what state you come from, you can attest to the fact that insurance rates are climbing. So people really involved with NCOIL really are just looking for a solution, not a Republican solution or a Democrat solution, just something that will make it better for everyone involved.
So do you have any favorite issues or model laws that we've tackled in the years past?
Right. I do love coming from the mental health committee. I'm no longer on it, but for my first two terms, I served as our ranking member on the mental health committee in the New York State Assembly. The mental health exam resolution was a good one, really encouraging more states to mandate coverage for a mental health exam every year, because what we've seen in over the last decade or so, mental health has really come a long way in its recognition as being part of your broader physical health. So I think anything we can do to encourage more people to take their mental health seriously will lead to more positive healthcare outcomes over the long term. And that's an issue I've also been really involved with locally, is trying to have schools set up mental health clinics right on campus. And we were successful where I am now in the Bayport Blue Point district. And they set up a student wellness center that has a social worker and a psychologist on staff. And they've gotten good feedback on it. So that's an issue that's been near and dear to me, and I'm glad to see that NCOIL took action on it, and I was able to support something so great.
Yeah, it seems like that's definitely something that's becoming a big hot topic of conversation all around the country. So it's great to see some real progress is getting made on that. So naturally, we've discussed some of the things that are great about NCOIL, but there's of course always ways we can move forward and improve. Are there anything you would like to see kind of going forward, NCOIL kind of work on organizationally as we continue to advance and change?
I'm confident that Pam Hunter coming on as president is going to do a great job. It was left in a great spot from our outgoing president Tom Oliverson from Texas, and now with Tom Considine leaving and Will taking over, I know we're going to be in a good place. Um, I'd like to see maybe a little more to have freshman members to NCOIL who might need it, a better insurance 101 maybe to get people up to speed. I'm lucky that I had a little exposure to this just for working in the state assembly for a long time. But for a lot of newer legislators, the entire insurance sphere, especially when you get into the legislation, could be a little overwhelming. So, and it's something I would love to help out on if I can, just helping newer legislators get up to speed with terminology and just general insurance concepts.
That's awesome. That definitely benefits everybody. So that'll be a great thing to work on. So before we let you go, we have a quick round of hard-hitting questions that we have to ask you. Can you tell us what your favorite all-time movie is?
Ooh, it's a tough one. I'm going to sound like a giant nerd here, but I might have to go with Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. That one, I remember seeing that when I was probably 14 years old or something, and I could still watch it if it comes on TV. So that might be my favorite movie of all time.
Great answer. Favorite all-time food?
Ooh. Probably just a very good slice of regular pizza, like a done well slice, not from a decent place. We have a lot of good pizza around here. I might say we're superior to New Jersey. I'm sorry,
I don't
but
know if I'd agree with that, but I'll defer to you.
but you give me a good regular slice of pizza, and I'll take that 9 times out of 10.
Great. Favorite book or author?
I can't say I have a favorite book. Oh, my recent favorite book, since I do a 3 hour drive back and forth to Albany, I got into audiobooks, and one I did 2 years ago was The Power Broker by Robert Caro, which is a massive book. It kind of chronicles the life of Robert Moses, who had such a profound impact in New York. And it's a extremely dense book, but it goes into a lot of history in a really granular way, and it's really cool to see how deep they go into the functions of Albany in the legislature and the governor's office from a perspective of the inside in the really early 1900s. So it was a really fascinating audiobook to listen to. So I'll put that up there for now.
Very interesting. Song or musical artist?
Hmm. Probably the Zach Brown Band. I don't get into music too deeply, but I'm a big fan of theirs. Some of their older music, I haven't really seen much new released by them recently, but Zach Brown Band.
Great choice. And then last one, three dinner party guests, living or dead.
This is a good one, and I'm thinking about this and whether it's, for the most lively conversation or the most interesting conversation. So it could go a lot of different directions. But let's say living or dead. Living, I would love to sit at a table with Joe Namath as a hopeless Jets fan. I would really, I want to ask him if he sold his soul to win us that Super Bowl. But let's say Joe Namath. Teddy Roosevelt, and Andrew Jackson. I think that would a lot of people who have a lot I want to know about.
Very well thought out, great answers. I'm sure that would be a great conversation.
Right.
And with that, this wraps up this month's NCOIL one-on-one interview. New York Assemblyman Jarett Gandolfo, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much, Patrick, and I'll look forward to seeing you in Charleston.
Sounds great. We'll see you there.